Hi! If you watched the video about the fairy house and pendants with picture resining, you know that I've already worked with Epoxy products, and this time I asked this producer some luminophore for a review, and I also want to make a clock of this material, so I'm going to tell you about it in this video. But Epoxy sent me a huge parcel with lots of goodies before the New Year holiday, and at first I wanted to make an unboxing like a vlogger, but I still don't know how to open boxes prettily, and all I can say at this moment is... There were so many various things, we will make a lot of them! Jeez! Speaking about the luminophore, in this video I will simply use it, and in future I want to make specifically a video review, where I will mix it with something, compare different colors, different amount. Well, anyway, I will do the thing I deeply love – experiment. I ordered a set on AliExpress with such a clock mold and a mechanism, which is super nice. Unfortunately, there is only one mechanism, and I will definitely need more later. Epoxy has 3 colors of luminophore: green, purple and light blue, and for this clock I took precisely the blue one, cause I want to make nothing but the space. It has been a long time since I made the space. As the surface of the clock will be quite large, there is little sense to take resin for jewelry, because firstly, it will be more expensive, secondly, we don't need super mega crystal transparency, and thirdly, if some bubbles rest in resin, it will be alright, cause we will hide them by decorating the clock. And that's why I take the epoxy resin for making decor elements. It's a bit cheaper and the volume of a bottle is larger. I would also make the comparison of these resins for jewelry and decor, cause geez, I just like comparing, experimenting, trying something out, and also it will be helpful for you. But let's get back to the clock. Just in case, protect the surface of your table and mix the components. This resin should be mixed in 100:35 ratio, but it's too much for me. So I divide both numbers in 5 and get 20 grams of resin to 7 grams of hardener. I also got these small scales, and damn, it's so handy! Put a plastic cap on them, and as it already has weight, we need to press the tear button, so the scales will display 0. Here I have almost 20 grams of resin, but it's absolutely better to pour 1 milligram less than pour 5 more. Press the tear button again to get 0 on the scales. Add 7 grams of the hardener. Give it a good stir and add the luminophore in here. I haven't studied well the luminophore yet, so I will add this powder approximately. Next we need to fill in only the numbers in the mold. And it definitely takes some time. As I have a lot of resin left, I took another clock mold and began to pour resin in it. As you can see, I have a lot of bubbles in here, but the mold is flat, so they will come out after a while. I left the first mold waiting for it to dry completely, because if I had kept pouring resin in it, everything would have mixed together, and my plan wouldn't have worked. The second mold is for experiments. I poured there some transparent resin, made some swirls which won't be seen after all. Then, under the layer of resin, I put such little stars, and then I added glitter, which sounds in Russian like blestki. By the way, my window was open, because when you work with resin, your room must be aired well. And when I was adding glitter, it was blown off by the airflow, so that created a stunning effect on the resin. Anyway, it seems like I used quite a lot of glitter. Then, for the other project, I colored the resin with some dye and used the remnants of the resin to make the experimental clock. After 2 days, I got the clocks out of my molds. All the swirls are not seen at all, because there was too much black, so it covered the swirls completely. I didn't pour resin up to the edge behind, that's why I got such an uneven surface, but I simply didn't want to waste resin on the experimental clock. Let's get back to the main clock. It has also hardened. So now, using the scales, I make a new portion of resin. To be honest, I used to not understand why anyone needs buying scales, when you can just take a syringe, do pew-pew, easily pour your resin and then keep working. But the scales turned out to be really handy, and if you work with resin quite often, maybe you have your own store or you do it for pleasure, then I can advise you buying such scales. If you haven't tried working with resin yet and you want to do it for the first time, it's possible that you might not like it. So in such a case, I advise you to try using a syringe first. But if you like it, I'm sure that you won't regret buying scales. Although it is still extremely individual. Well, yeah, there might be someone who will say that this video is commercial and I'm praising the product so very much, but it's not like that. This is a standard practice when a company sends to a blogger some goodies and he or she says everything he or she thinks about the given products. If I had product advertising on my channel, by the way I still don't have any, I would tell you so, because the trust of my audience is extremely important to me. But let's finally get back to the clock. I pour some transparent resin in the mold, and as there are a lot of bubbles, I leave the clock till all the bubbles are out. Meanwhile, I decided to quickly charge the luminophore with a lamp to finally see what I got. While that clock was lying under the light of the lamp, I took my hair dryer to get rid of bubbles on the main clock as much as possible. Actually, you don't need to charge your luminophore artworks, but as I couldn't resist my temptation anymore to see the result, I made such a boost with the help of a lamp. So, as you can see, it glows awesome. To be frank, in quite an uneven manner, because the luminophore was mixed with glitter and another resin. I mean, there is no clear, even layer of luminophore. I was experimenting. When the transparent layer of resin on the main clock has hardened and all the bubbles have almost come out, I began to add glitter. And yeah, I didn't notice it in time that one part of the clock face wasn't covered with resin. It happened because there was a thin layer of resin, so it couldn't spread well because of the uneven surface. I added stars, and after that, with the help of a toothpick, I made the layer of resin more even. So I put the clock on the table to let it dry. To sum up, this problem happened because the clock was placed on the books at some angle. I used a lot of glitter again, and it was high time for the final layer. I took 30 grams of resin and 10.5 grams of hardener. If you know school curriculum in math, you can calculate any required amount. It seems like knowing language is also important. Having known the school curriculum in math, you can easily calculate any ratio of resin and hardener. So, kids, learn math. After that, I add several drops of such black dye. In fact, if you want to make it last longer, wipe off its tip and it will help the cap to fit better. Give it a good stir and pour this fuel on the clock. When it was finally hard, I understood that not all the bubbles came out, but I didn't care, because it was the back side of the clock and I wasn't going to sell it, so not a big deal. And the surface turned out really smooth. I got the clock out of the mold, and this is the magic we have achieved. Now we need two things: to attach the mechanism, to put on the clock hands, and voila! However, at that moment I didn't have any batteries, but still I was wild about the clock. In this case, I couldn't wait either, so I charged the luminophore with a lamp. The thing is that I have forgotten to highlight the most important part – the clock hands. To solve this problem, we simply need to cover them with a thin layer of luminophore, otherwise they will become too heavy. Well, this is the clock I made. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. I love you this much. Bye!